I've always been used because I'm a good guy. And women, when they meet me, they say, I can use this son of a bitch. I push him around. He's an easygoing guy. So I do it. But you know, finally I get resented a bit.
What do you resent?
Just being pushed.
Pushed?
Yeah.
But again, we do have these organizations like the Royal Institute for International Affairs, Council on Foreign Relations, the Project for New American Century, and then one I might touch on tonight too, which is the one that came out of that last one, and is working very, very strongly today. But who gives them authority to, number one, exist? Do the public vote for them? No, you don't. You don't get to. Most of the public don't even know they exist. And why is it that your vote doesn't matter? Because whoever you vote in goes along with an agenda that you never suspected. For most folk who never suspected it, it really frightens me when the general public are genuinely surprised that the person they vote for changes their tune on pretty well every single thing that they mentioned when they were running for election. Because there's nothing new about that. Marx advised the future leaders to do the same thing, to infiltrate the political parties in any party, didn't matter what name it had, and pretend you were, if it's conservative, you'd be the most conservative of them all. If it was Labour, you'd be the most Labouristic of them all, and so on, until you were in, then you can do what you wanted to do, and that's what has happened in many countries over the years. So all the saps, basically, that were promised peace, and we're told that peace is better than warfare, are just that, they're saps. It wouldn't have mattered one way or another who got in the US, for instance. One would have been a bit slower, and because they were doing it with proxy armies, with American funding and training. Whereas the other one got in because he promised to get the boots on the ground and out of Americans. And Americans would fund it all and pay for it all, and that's what's happening. They get it done faster. Our whole lives, basically, that's all. A whole generation's grown up. Many of them have died off already. Where all you've heard is problems with the Middle East, the whole darn life. And people don't stop and say, well, why? So the wars go on, and you can either cry or walk away because you aren't going to change it. Big power and big money rules it all. And big power and big money is a worldwide gang in this day and age. That's what it is. And it's pretty ruthless too. Pretty ruthless. And for those who think too that things happen in a spontaneous fashion, I've mentioned before that when it comes to military offensives and so on, it takes years to plan each one of them. Years. It's not spur of the moment. We knew that too with the George Bush Jr. and his whole bunch, with the Project for New American Century and all the rest of it, that they had troops waiting ready to invade Afghanistan before 9/11 happened. It took years to plan all these things. And a whole list of countries would be taken out. They've taken them all out except Iran and Syria, Somalia, and I think it was Yemen as well. I think there's quite a few countries on that whole list. They've taken a bunch of them out already, but there's a whole bunch left too. They've got to finish off. And they won't tell Americans why America must go off and finish off these countries, but I think we all have an idea. But it really doesn't matter, does it? We're going to live through it again. But as I say, it gets monotonous. It really gets monotonous. Pretending you live in a free society when your own governments will come down and imprison you if you mention various things you're not supposed to mention anymore, which are obvious. It'd be kind of like walking home from school and you've got a black eye. And you get in the door and your mum says, who gave you that black eye? And if you mention it, then your mum's going to start beating you up. That's where we are. We're not allowed to mention reality as we see it. Even when it affects us personally, it's not allowed anymore. That's why I mentioned last week about the system of the Soviet system that ran the Soviet countries, including Bulgaria. I put up that link to that excellent little documentary they put together of suffering under the incredible brutality, the brutality of this, what was called the left-wing Soviet system, where literally you were imprisoned, and often all they stamped on it was you're nonconformist. You wouldn't go along with the politically correct verbiage of the gang that ran you. And we're seeing the same thing being enforced in our own countries right now. If you've got a different opinion on different things, they want to put you in prison. Yep. We see it all happening again and again and again. Again and again and again. You're a nonconformist. You won't use this terminology. You're a nonconformist. You must, and I've given the talks over what I'm talking about over the past few months, in fact. But many other things as well you're not allowed to talk about, even when you ask questions about why. We are sentient beings, and as such, we're supposed to ask questions as to why things are happening, and where we see problems. Why is there a problem there? What is this? And you're not allowed to ask anymore. So much we can toss free speech out the window, and even the freedom of thought out the window, because your governments are ready to put you in prison or psychiatric institutions, again a favourite of the old Soviet system in all the Soviet bloc countries. Because if you complained about anything in the system, you had to be insane to criticise such a perfect utopia as the Soviet Union. And believe you me, there's no shortage of these BS psychiatrists that will gladly stamp your way into the prison or the psychiatric unit on behalf of the government. There's no shortage of these characters in any regime. It's disgusting. And often you have to walk away just to keep your own sanity, because you will be incredibly disgusted at humanity. And even those around you will put up with, in fact, or do. Or how they'll reduce to groveling themselves to please their bosses and so on. That there are many facets within human nature that are pretty disgusting. Pretty disgusting. They talk about the whistleblowers, and everybody will give accolades to the whistleblower. But if that whistleblower asks for anyone around who's given accolades to back them up, they run like stampeding cattle. Yeah. And that's the way of humanity. It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And this world, I don't think really this world's intended to have any peace at all. I've never seen peace in my lifetime. Even little bits of peace, they're giving you economic destruction, of taking down your nations. And I lived through that in other countries. I watched it happen. The people were told nothing at all, except there was more and more unemployment, and factories were closing. Didn't tell the people that this was going to be the agenda for the next 40 years. Deindustrialization, made from secret agreements and so on. So why even pretend that you're voting for a country when the country deems you unfit to tell what they plan to do with you? That's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? To vote for them. The same governments that kept it secret from you, that about 1948 they set up the institutions in each country of Europe to literally destroy their sovereignty, open their borders wide to mass immigration, deculturalize the peoples that paid their wages, and also deindustrialize them until it was mass unemployment. And they deemed it fit to keep that secret from the public until the new European Parliament was up and running. War propaganda is not meant to really make much sense, except on a cartoon level. It's to be kept simple. They say that in all the manuals. And the propaganda must be so simplistic in a sense that the people will not think through the real reasons why. They won't even approach it, in fact. Sometimes they make it a little obscure at the same time to further complicate the issue. But the facts are, when violence, extreme violence, is to be used, which is killing people, then they must give basic reasons for going off to do so. Facts don't matter when there's a big agenda there. And the same thing has been said by, I think it was one of the officials from Britain to Syria recently. So the same thing, we've seen this all before. When there's an agenda afoot, you can't believe anything the intelligence agencies tell you. So when you hear about a supposed gassing, and you see pictures, the pictures mean nothing. All through 9/11 and afterwards, for the reasons for conquering the Middle East, we were shown lots and lots and lots of fake pictures that came out, and it was admitted to afterwards they were all fake. But it didn't matter at the time, as long as it got the job done. And it's the same thing here too. It's so pathetic, these pithy excuses, pithy excuses they give to the general public. It really is sad, isn't it? And then the next thing you know, $59 million or so is spent on missiles and retaliation. So let's get away from this whole idea that they care about killing folk. The whole point of what they do is to kill people. Anyway, directed energy atmospheric lens could revolutionize future battlefields. Within the next 50 years, scientists at the BAE systems, now I think that's the same systems that created HARP for the US. As I checked that up and to confirm it, mind you. Anyway, they believe that battlefield commanders could deploy a new type of directed energy laser and lens system called a laser-developed atmospheric lens, which is capable of enhancing commanders' ability to observe adversaries' activities over much greater distances than existing sensors. At the same time, the lens could be used as a form of a deflector shield to protect friendly aircraft, ships, land vehicles, and troops from incoming attacks. Now this weapon, which it's a weapon of course, it says here, can basically change the path of electromagnetic waves such as light and radio signals, and it can magnify them all too. So you're looking at something that could probably, I think James Bond had a movie kind of like that too, or like a deflector in space, where they could create an incredible path of energy right down to the earth, and it could cut right through icebergs and everything else too, fry everything on the ground. And I'm sure that's, of course, is what it is. This is a complex and innovative concept that copies two existing effects in nature. Yeah, they always take something from nature. The reflective properties of the ionosphere and desert mirages. The ionosphere occurs at a very high altitude and is a naturally occurring layer of the Earth's atmosphere, which can be reflective to radio waves. So you just know it's basically a weapon. And they can do a lot with it too. And they're dying to use it, I'm sure, on real live people, because that's what they're designed to do. I mean, that's what weaponry is, you know, to be used on live people. And they don't care, any of these organizations that make the weaponry, or the governments that use them, about little babies or anything else, all that nonsense. They really don't. They don't. And you better understand something too. Countries that do that, and I've said this from the beginning, they create this big eating machine that goes across the world, just eating up different nations. Eventually it comes back home to you. And you at home have changed as much as the countries that have been conquered by your troops abroad. That's what Carroll Quigley said. One of the effects of war is to change the cultures of all those engaged in the war itself, even those back home. And you're all under surveillance now, to an incredible extent. And believe you me, it's astonishing to hear people still believing that nothing's changed. Where have they been? What coma have they been in? What are they drinking or smoking? They really still think that everything's just the same. It's just, you can't help them really, can you? It really is too much. Remember too that in 1984, Orwell's 1984, when eventually Winston's captured, etc., he learns that the fake resistance is put up there for you to join, so his big brother would find out who you are. The fake resistance said that the war is not meant to be won. It's just perpetual war for control purposes and power. It's not meant to be won. So you always have a war on the go. And that's what we have, isn't it?